All right. Welcome back to the world-famous Tipitinas. Thank you so much to Tipitinas for allowing us to use the space. Thank you to Nugs.net for the usage of the equipment. And I hope you are watching this on Tipitinas.tv, our new media empire. I have a guest on the show tonight that I'm very excited to speak with, and I'm not going to do some kind of big, long intro or anything like that. I'll just go ahead and get to it. Ladies and gentlemen, Richard Vogel.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's good to be here.
So, Rich, I'm told you're in a band called, I always forget this.
Galactic,
that's right. Galactica.
No,
yeah,
you were right the first time.
Okay, Galactic. I like making that joke. I think it's funny. Sorry.
Me too.
It's going to be old by the time I get to all five of you guys. But you are a founding member of Galactic, and we'll just go ahead and start back at your history. Not born in New Orleans. You're actually from Omaha.
I am from Omaha.
That's right.
Yeah. It's a true story.
It is a true story. The big
Land of Dreams.
Is that one of the nicknames?
Well, it was to us.
Okay. Was it the Land of Dreams? I mean, I know it's that.
No, you know what it is? Actually, Nebraska, the good life.
Is it?
That's the slogan of the state of Nebraska, or at least it was.
All right. What's the state flower?
I thought that was pretty good. Oh, I don't know. Wheat? It's corn. I don't know.
Yeah, corn, wheat, whatever.
I mean, it is corn.
Is
even
it really?
though I'm sure it isn't. No. I mean,
State tree. I'm gonna give you Omaha stuff or Nebraska stuff.
State tree. Oh, it's
all your family is gonna start
juniper
commenting.
bush. I have no idea.
Well,
that's
what is
really...
your state bird? Do you know that? I know your state bird.
I don't know my state bird, but that's because you did deep research.
I did deep research.
As you warned me, you would.
I did,
and
yeah.
yet I completely
this isn't
discounted.
history. Yeah.
Yeah. I was told there'd be no math.
Yeah, there's no math.
What was the question?
The state bird. It's actually the western meadowlark.
Oh.
Does that ring a bell? They're probably all over the place.
Oh, they're all over. Yeah, totally.
I only mentioned that because...
We had a nest in our...
Oh, yeah, obviously. Everyone kept them as kids.
Well, several nests.
For sure.
In our barn. And
well, I asked about the bird specifically because Vogel is Dutch and German for bird.
It is. That I did know.
Okay.
See, I got one right. Good.
Luckily, it was about your name specifically.
Good. Thank God.
Well, I figured if you are
2 out of 3, and I get
the bird family, as it were, might have known the state bird. No, shot in the dark. Well, you're from Omaha, that hotbed of funk.
Yes, home of the funk.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
Was there a lot of music in your house growing up? Anything like that?
Yeah, there was. That's kind of, I suppose, how this began. There was a lot of music because I have 3 older sisters, an older brother, and there's a gap too. Like I'm by 5 years.
Yeah.
So when I was little, I had all their music going on to deal with. And then at some point I was kind of almost like an only child at some point because they were all gone. But I'd already, like my dad, like he loved New Orleans jazz. Actually, he loved traditional jazz, because he'd been down here. He was a pilot, like corporate pilot.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So he was very well traveled, of course. And he had discovered Preservation Hall, like back in the old days. I mean, I don't know when Ben's parents got it going exactly,
but 61
exactly
maybe around then.
Exactly. That jives with Pops' stories. So he probably came down flying somebody. He flew executives and things, usually corporate flying for a couple different companies over the years. But I'm sure what got him to New Orleans on occasion, and he'd always go to Pres Hall and he had records. I mean, my dad was born in 1930. I'm the last of 5 kids.
Okay.
And, so he had old jazz records. He had, I still have some of these, even though I don't have a turntable to play them on post-Katrina.
Blasphemy, I guess.
Yeah,
right?
After Katrina, I never got going again with records, but I have some of this gold that he had. And like 78s and even the 78s, which we didn't even have when we were kids. Really, it was just 45s and LP records and stuff like that. So my mom loved everything, classical, opera, and all sorts of stuff. But and then brothers and sisters. I remember my brother's Led Zeppelin 4 record as a little kid.
All right.
the old man with the sticks and
Yeah,
everything,
yeah.
And I remember like it resonating with me, like something about it was good, but it wasn't genre stuff so much. It could be anything. My sister Amy loved the Police, and she was into them before, even, Everybody's Taken, all that. Like she had all the old records. And
Okay.
so it was just random stuff. And then it was like the Midwest in those days, so it was just commercial radio too.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
in some ways it was so limited compared to obviously everything in the world's available now, but I
Yeah.
found cool things, and then because I started playing, started discovering other stuff, and I eventually discovered like some modern jazz stuff and like all the kind of groove jazz, like soul jazz and stuff.
How old were you when you started playing then? Piano and keys has been your only instrument, is that right?
Yeah, my mom kind of tricked me into playing the piano in a way. I was like, I want to play drums. And we actually, eventually my brother and I had a drum kit in the basement, and we banged on it. And then eventually like drummers ended up playing this old kit we had, like when I started, just getting garage bands going and stuff. But my mom was like, you got to learn music though. That's fine. That's great. But you need to know music, like, the components of music and the theory and all of that. So she's like, so you're going to take some piano lessons, and then wherever you take it. And, I had kind of the typical little old lady, sweet neighborhood kind of piano teacher, piano lessons.
Yeah.
And I wasn't like going to be some classical prodigy or something, but she really did get the fundamentals
All right.
into my hands.
But at the very least, it wasn't the fun part of the fundamentals. It was literally just learning. Like you weren't playing Zeppelin tunes when you were a little
but
kid.
then I was trying to pick out things by ear, just
Okay.
anything, like could be like the Doors or anything that had a keyboard part or something like that. And then eventually I met a guy, actually it was my childhood piano teacher, Mrs. Stenlin, who was a very sweet woman, who said, to my mom, like, I think like there's a different route for him. I know this guy who's like plays jazz and pop stuff, contemporary music, and so maybe you should go take him to see him. And so that was kind of a game changer for me, because his name's Tony Galizia. I've talked about him over the years. This great guy, great musician from Omaha, and was a great teacher who lives in Colorado now and has for a couple decades. But he was just one of these guys. He did everything, and he did like the more lounge type gigs.
Yeah.
His brother played the drums. They were called the Galizia brothers, and like they did like the steakhouse lounge thing, but they were really good at it.
All right.
Like not cheesy. Like, he could sing, like almost had this kind of Al Jarreau.
He's playing stuff that's probably going over people's heads.
Yeah, it is, but they knew how to play to a room. They were just pros, total pros. It didn't matter what they were doing. And then they had some other projects that were more kind of, stuff they wanted to do in some of the bars and stuff. And like kind of jazz and jazz fusion was going on a lot at that time. But so there was kind of this small core of Omaha elite musicians that I became aware of. The guys who could just kind of play everything. They were just like great all-around players. Yeah. And they did a lot of different things. And so that made an impression on me too, because I was like, oh, I see how you do. You got to like, be able to wear all these different hats. But Tony just gave me some fundamentals that allowed me to, do things like learn more what I was learning by ear and like playing the jazz band in high school, stuff like that. So then it was kind of part of my life.
So, you start piano at an early age, and you said you played in the jazz band. That is like the high school jazz band or something?
Yeah.
But you were also in garage bands?
Yeah, we had a basement that had a lot of instruments in it. So we weren't like bands that were performing a lot, but we did like stuff in the talent shows. I didn't have a band like that, like Rob and Jeff, the Schismatics or whatever.
Yeah.
We didn't have like a punky band like that. I played with guys who did, but because I was a piano player, we just put something together, and like we did some things in like my high school had this big talent show. It was kind of a big deal. They called it the Road Show, and you had to audition, and so we did some things like that. But then at that point, I was playing some kind of like bluesy piano, and I remember this is more like swing. Like there was a Stanley Turrentine record called Blue Hour, and Gene Harris is the piano player on that. And so it's a jazz record, but it's very like finger popping bluesy jazz, like swinging. So we could play that kind of stuff because we were in the jazz band and stuff. So we would do a little combo things like that, and that was really
just a hobby, though, right?
Like, yeah, of course. I was in high school. And
after talking with Robert and Stanton, sitting where you were, they both, well, at the very least, Stanton, when he was a kid, knew he was going to be a professional musician. And according to Robert, he didn't think he would be, but Jeffrey knew he was going to be a professional. You know, at 13 years old, said, "I'm going to be a rock star at the dinner table." You know, stuff like that.
Oh yeah. That's so funny because that's just in keeping with everybody's personalities too. I think you know what I mean?
Robert,
like that makes total sense. And like Stanton's always like known is what I'm doing, and I'm doing it to the utmost. And it's like. Yeah, it's really funny because we're all really kind of different people in that way, and yet somehow...
Well, did you ever think you'd be playing professionally, aside from, you know, for recreation in high school, you know?
I thought it was an appealing life in a lot of ways because I just love these guys around Omaha. Like, go hang out at their gigs, and I just thought, like, they were just the greatest bunch of guys, and they seemed so happy with life, you know? Even though nobody had, like, no one was... a millionaire, you know, they had homes and were getting by and had families, some of them, and some were younger and didn't, but they seemed to be having so much fun with each other. So that was always in the back of my mind. But still, I went to college, like, oh, you should go to college. I've got the, chance to go to college, and so that's how I got down here.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I think
my
next
question is,
the next chapter.
The next chapter. Yeah, crack your beer.
I'm going to crack a beer.
Yeah, I thought you'd been drinking. I'm sorry. I'm already half a glass in. You came down to go to Loyola, but you weren't you were in the music program, but you were only minoring in music.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, history major?
I was a history major.
And after college, all the big history companies weren't hiring, so you thought you'd play music instead?
Yeah, there must have been a hiring freeze or something. It was not like, they weren't, there was no bidding war. Yeah. Like all history majors, you're like, okay. I really enjoyed it. Because I was interested enough that I obviously became a history major. And Loyola was this really interesting school. I almost ended up there by default because I came down to New Orleans, to visit a friend who was a Loyola student. And he was like me, like a guy who was into music, somebody I'd played in the jazz band, and like he was a year older. And I think his father was a professor at the Jesuit University in Omaha, Creighton. And they had some kind of deal worked out or whatever, because he just ended up down here at Loyola.
All right.
And it was some kind of, I think he got a scholarship or something about the Jesuit. There was some reciprocal arrangement, those things they've got. Yeah, secret deals they've got going. So I didn't really know that much about it, but I came down and realized like there was a lot of musicians at Loyola then, because this was before UNO even really got the jazz studies.
Ellis Marcellus
he hadn't come back, and so there were a lot of great musicians at Loyola.
Yeah.
And I actually went to Tulane my freshman year.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, my freshman experience was at Tulane, and I was the whole time though. Once you got beyond that first couple of weeks of like the boot and whatever, and I just kept running into Loyola students because I was like interested in music, and I had some friends. This friend from Omaha, who, were trying to go out and hear music, like start to take advantage of the city of New Orleans, And so that just pulled me away from like everybody I knew at Tulane on my dorm and all that, and I just started meeting. I was just like, these are the people. This is cool. These people. This is who I. I was making all these friends at Loyola.
A better music program, even though it wasn't going to be your focus. Like you knew that you enjoyed playing music, and while you're in college in a music
I did.
town,
And I came over with the intention of being a music major.
Oh, okay.
And I was for a year, I guess. And then I was kind of like, well, what's a music degree for me? It's kind of the same thing as history. Like, if you're gonna, if you want to stay academic and stuff, then. But I just kind of was interested in playing and learning. At the same time, I just got sort of captivated by a few history classes I had, and Loyola was that kind of school, like very liberal arts.
Yeah.
like they required you to take 3 semesters of philosophy,
Yeah.
3 semesters of religious studies. It was very much this like, kind of classic liberal arts education, and so I just kind of
Well, you were in this.
did all of the above.
Yeah,
you know?
you're. I'm sorry. You are in this world famous funk band now, but you hadn't been listening to much funk. I mean, you saw a lot of jazz, a lot of early jazz.
Yeah.
Some of your earliest musical influences, and you moved to New Orleans,
But-
and obviously there's all kinds of music.
Yeah.
How did you land on funk?
Well, there's a lot of funky jazz too, like some of the old rare groove and like soul jazz stuff, and the organ players like stuff Lonnie Smith, and so I've heard some of that, and I like that. I like groove based music, and also at that time in the '80s, like the musicians around Omaha, they were playing kind of some of the fusion stuff and the kind of contemporary. There was like that kind of crossover, like Crusaders and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's not a lot of famous musicians from Omaha area, because I did try to look into that. Best I could find was 311.
Yeah, 311, of course.
So
Yeah.
I'm a fan of 311. I don't mean to, what have you, but
Yeah, I didn't really know those guys. The drummer was a friend of a good friend of mine who was a drummer, but they went to a different high school. But they are all
Yeah?
kind of
Chad
the same
Sexton?
age, same era. Yeah, actually Chad's the only one I knew at all.
all right, dude, you should call. I'm a big fan. Like, I didn't realize this whole time.
Well, I know because of
I guess
via
you guys
Drew,
are about the
Drew
same
Wa-
age. That makes sense.
Drew
yeah.
Weiss, a drummer, great drummer in his own right, who didn't end up doing music as a career, but yeah.
Well, so I guess there was plenty of funk in the music that you were listening to already. And I know that after a few years of being here is probably when you first joined up with Galactic Prophylactic, I assume. Were there any other bands before you had met Rob, Jeff, and Stanton? Did you play in any bands regularly at all?
No, I didn't.
Oh, so you got one band on your resume. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's really true. Except for then I played down on Bourbon Street. I did the Bourbon Street thing for a year and a half or so while Galactic was kind of getting going. I think even the summer we recorded Coolin' Off, I was playing regularly down there. That was the summer of '95, and I was playing with Brian Lee at the old at the old Absinthe Bar. And I think I must have subbed out for a couple of days. We went and made Coolin' Off, and it all. But I live in the same neighborhood as those guys. They were, the Valmont house that you talked about. We just lived a couple of blocks away.
All right.
And
so you didn't live in the famous house over by.
No,
Guy's.
I didn't actually. A roommate of mine was playing with them, like second guitar.
All right.
And so I think I went over some of their house parties and yeah.
So you didn't live in the house right across from Guy's. You lived a couple blocks away. So how did you first meet the guys individually then?
That's a good question. It must have been my roommate, Rob Gowan. He was kind of playing second guitar in Galactic Prophylactic. So I think I ended up going just to some of their gigs. We're going out to see live music all the time.
Yeah.
We were in college, all of us, separately until we kind of came to know each other. And and they had some house parties, I think. And so I'd seen them play, and I was like, oh, this is cool. They got something going on. And then once they got Stanton playing with him, was like, this is really, really good. They need a keyboard player.
Yeah.
And then I think Rob even, they borrowed some little spinet Hammond from somebody, and so he was playing a little bit of organ, but he wasn't an organ player. He was a second guitar player. Yeah. So he introduced me to him. And I had this, not a B3, but the best sort of imitation thing they used to make back in the 80s, a Korg thing, that drawbar kind of organ thing, and a Leslie. And it sounded really cool. And no one was really using that gear much then. It was still mostly digital pianos and things like that.
Even for some of the more the Neville Brothers and
Well,
Leaders and stuff,
yeah. I mean, of
still
course, Art was still playing an organ but there was a lot of those 80s sounds were still lingering over into the 90s, the kind of digital keyboard stuff. Yeah. And then, on Bourbon Street, it was all that stuff, except for at the old Absinthe Bar with Brian Lee, where they just had a house B3.
Nice.
So that became my first experience with the real instrument. But so I can't remember exactly how it happened. I think Stanton came over to the house, and Rob was like, "Oh yeah, my roommate got this, plays this organ keyboard. It sounds really cool."
Yeah, we're trying to start this funk thing.
Yeah. And then I think I don't know. I was playing, and Stanton came over, and he's like, "Hey man, you want to be in a band?" I'm like, "Well, I don't know. What are the hours?"
What are the hours? What
you
are
want
the
a
jobs?
job? That's what he said. You want a job, right?
You had other jobs though while you were in college though, aside from performing live. I read that you were a barista.
That was actually after college.
Okay. Oh, it was after college?
Yeah. When I was like, oh, what am I going to do? It's like I have a history degree.
Yeah.
And so I was cobbling together a living doing various part-time jobs.
All right. Where were you a barista?
That actually came a little later. That was right before I started playing on Bourbon Street. It was this place, Cafe Luna, up on...
Oh, dude, that's
it's still there, but it's not the same.
Okay.
It's same in name, but... yeah, it was a different owner back then. It was cool. He was an artist, but he was into music, and he had a great collection of records and stuff.
Yeah.
And,
well, I mean, it's still a funky place, and they sell art outside sometimes. They'll have an artist set up. I've seen. Maybe that's just some dude who sets up his art on the sidewalk. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, but
yeah,
he sold it at some point. I was already playing on Bourbon Street at that point, but he had a lot of odd. I delivered rugs for a rug store that was on Magazine Street.
Yeah.
Jacqueline Vance, Oriental Rugs. I did that for a little while. That was actually Rob did that as well, my roommate.
What was your worst job you think that you ever had outside of playing music?
That's a great question. I had a lot of different jobs. I worked at a sort of flunky amusement park in Omaha for a summer after high school.
All right.
Peony Park. Yeah.
Still there?
It probably shouldn't be. It might be.
That's great, man. So you had met these guys through your roommate, Rob, and they were playing shows as Galactic Prophylactic, I assume, mostly college parties and things like that.
Right.
And the occasional club gig. Mm-hmm. And I hear a lot of stories about you guys going to Benny's early on.
Yeah.
And meeting Theral Houseman.
Right.
Tell me about first meeting him, and obviously you could talk for hours about Houseman, I'm sure.
Yeah, I met him.
Some of your initial impressions.
Yeah, I met him later. He, I think I may have first met Theral when we actually recorded Cooling Off.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, I had gone to Benny's, but I wasn't a regular like those guys were, like all the Reward guys and stuff like that. They had definitely spent more time there and got to know all of them more, and definitely Theral. And because my first impression really is that session where he came in and it was like, something's wrong with this picture.
Yeah. Which you guys did a phenomenal job recutting earlier this year.
Right. Yeah.
It's beautiful with Ivan and Jelly singing it.
Right. Yeah.
You guys hadn't played that without Theral before, have you?
No, we really hadn't. I think we had thought about it at one point, and it just didn't seem right. Like maybe with Cyril, we had tried it out, but it just never found its way back into the set. It just didn't seem. It always seemed like his song, his signature song with the band. When that bass line was just kind of the "Here Comes the Houseman" basement, bass line, don't, doodle doodle. So, yeah, that was really the beginning of it. I mean, I feel like we kind of did that tune first, and it really did. It came together quickly, and then
real quickly, 2 or 3 days. You did
the whole record
album.
really.
Yeah.
It was 2 or 3 days.
I remember talking when again since I've talked to a couple of the guys before. You recorded at Alan Toussaint's studio, and you didn't show up with a whole album's worth of material either. Like a lot of it was worked out literally on the spot.
It was.
And who was it? Was it Clarence playing sax for y'all? Is that right?
No, it was Eric Traub.
Eric Traub, that's right. Eric Traub playing sax for y'all.
And Mark Mullins played.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this trumpet player Eric Jacobson.
But on the spot, they were coming up with the horn.
They
lines for
were,
that.
and that was a lot of that was Eric Traub. He was
Okay.
kind of just he was such a masterful player. He could, again, that kind of person who could just do anything and play any kind of gig. And yeah, he was kind of an R&B master. I mean, he just like those horn parts just came out of him. And
well, I mean, seamlessly though, because there are still songs from that album that you guys play today.
Absolutely.
That I've lived in town 20 years, and I've been hearing you guys perform for 20 years, and some of those, to me, they're just classic New Orleans. You've created your own part of the New Orleans funk lexicon with something 25 years ago.
Yeah.
That is seemingly, to me, it seems like, oh, these songs have always been there. It doesn't occur to me that they were fairly new when I got to town, you know?
Yeah. I think that a few of those things like church and stuff, those guys had going even when I started playing with them. That kind of came a little bit. Some of the grooves and things came out of the Galactic Prophylactic into the sort of proto-Galactic phase there. And I'm trying to think what else. But then a lot of it was kind of, and they sort of got crystallized in the studio, a few of those things. And then, but a lot of it was just in the studio improvisation. And maybe we did a few little edits, but editing then was, of course, tape. Like you had to cut tape or so.
It's lengthy and expensive. You know?
Yeah. No, it's not like today where you can just, cut all you want or loop that or that's a great, and so it's kind of amazing what we came out of there with. I think it was a little different than even our shows were then, because that record just has such a kind of vibe to it, and it's fairly mellow. That's why we called it Cooling Off, even though the shows, we're playing in New Orleans, playing late night, had a lot of energy, and obviously you're playing for hours and things. But there's something about on that record, we got this sound that was just kind of, we were going for that classic kind of 70s R&B sound, and Sea Saint was the perfect place to be sort of pursuing that. And then, we just kind of got this thing that was a little bit like, it was a little bit higher than I think we as a band were at the time. Like we heard things in that were like, oh, this is really, this is kind of cool. And it was kind of the thing that kind of launched us into taking this really seriously. Well,
you had a real record that was, it was clean, it was well put together and professional. Like it was your grown-up attempt at putting music out there.
Yeah, it was. And when you heard it back, you were kind of like, oh, wow, this sounds good.
I mean, looking back, 25, these are classic New Orleans songs, like sounds, like things that you hear that, and maybe it's just me again, but I've been hearing them since I got here, so I assume that they've been here all along. That's how iconic they feel, at least to someone like me. Let's talk about those early road trips. We were joking before about the 78 Econoline and hitting the road in Stanton's family van, and we heard funny stories about how there used to be a drip on the gas pedal, and you had to put a bag around your foot with a rubber band so you wouldn't have a soaked foot while you were driving around, things like that.
Yeah.
But more specifically, going back to Houseman, to look back and think, back then, or you guys are now about the same age as he was when he went out on the road with you guys for the first couple of tours.
Yeah, that's true.
And kind of amazingly how far you've come since then. And could you ever imagine yourself going back and doing the same thing with another young band?
No, it's really hard to imagine that. It is. And just kind of on the road in a van. And we really lived in those vans. I mean, those first couple of tours, it's like, some nights you would just, buy we'd buy 2 rooms. Let's see if there was, or 3 rooms, I guess, for the 5 of us, or 6 with the horn player, and or 7, but sleeping on people's couches, like it'd be like family.
Yeah.
That's pretty hard to imagine doing that now.
Yeah. There's probably no one out there that can convince you to, hey, we got this new thing, we just put out an album, we're going to hit the road. how about you come ride my mom's van? We have a place to stay when we get 12 hours down the road. Like,
Yeah.
it's far-fetched to think anyone would do that today, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it is. And it was a real leap of faith on his part, you know, to get in that van with us. You know, it's kind of unbelievable thinking about it now. But
For sure. Well, here you are all these years later, and even looking back, early on, you guys had an opportunity to play Jazz Fest starting in '96, and you played every Jazz Fest since then.
Yeah.
I know you've gotten a much better time slot since then. But
This is
aside
true.
from every Jazz Fest since '96, you've played every Jam Cruise since that started. And you have become a heritage band for a lot of these festivals and very much made a name for yourselves. Were there any dates or festivals or shows or things early on in those first few years that you got put on the bill for, and all of a sudden it clicked while you were on stage and you look around and there's thousands of people jumping or dancing or whatever else, where it's like, oh, holy this thing's really going to work. I think we should really press hard with this.
No, it was kind of more like a slow, steady build.
Okay.
Although there was some early traction on the West Coast because of, I think, just being a New Orleans band and billing ourselves as a New Orleans band. And Dan Prothero, who made our first record with us, he got this little label going in San Francisco. He actually launched basically to release Cooling Off, called Fog City Records, and he had some connections around San Francisco, so he got us a couple nights. We played this place called the Elbow Room that was in the Mission that was really cool back then. And we got into a few rooms out there that were like, kind of had a built-in audience for certain type of music. There was kind of this scene going on back then called acid jazz that people were calling acid jazz, which had to do with sometimes funky bands and sometimes DJs who were, again, drawing on a lot of that like rare groove type old soul jazz records and things like that, but bringing it into a sort of contemporary DJ context. And that was kind of like bands like the Grey Boy All Stars, and associated with DJ Grey Boy, who spun a lot of that old school stuff like that. So there was kind of an era where like sort of funky, even mostly instrumental music had a little thing going on the West Coast. So we found some traction out there early on, but then a lot of it was like filling in, like how do you get from here to there, and you know, Colorado, and then you know, dates across the Southwest, Albuquerque and things like that. So it was very kind of hit or miss. You know, sometimes it was like 50 people, but we had a couple good gigs in San Francisco at the Elbow Room, and had, you know, what felt like a vibrant club full of people having fun, and like a little bit more like what we had going on in New Orleans. Because we already kind of had that playing around town here, you know, whether it was playing Cafe Brazil downtown, or of course the Mermaid Lounge back then, which was kind of...
I missed the Mermaid. That was It was only, you know, I didn't move here until 2000, but I definitely went there a few times.
Yeah. It was great. It was great. And there was a period where it seemed like we would do the Mermaid once a month, and maybe Cafe Brazil once a month. And it was, you know, enough. Mermaid wasn't truly uptown, but it was like, you know, Frenchman Street and what Frenchman Street was back then, and the downtown gig, and then kind of the you know, more warehouse district to be. You know, it's like, that's the thing, is back then that whole area wasn't developed like it was now. It was very raw, industrial.
It's a lot different.
Completely.
That's for sure.
But that was a great spot. And so I think, you know, we actually left for our first tour from Cafe Brazil.
Really? Just
at like 3 in the morning after the gig. Yeah, we packed up the trailer and headed out, and it was to Colorado. And then Colorado, pretty early on, like those ski towns and things, they started. You know, they're great for live music. They love live music. They tend to eat up what comes through, and we definitely found traction there quickly too. So there was just enough encouragement to like keep going. And it did kind of build up slowly, but there was that period where, okay, at least like Colorado, and we get out to, you know, Seattle, and Portland started happening, and San Francisco, like that'll get us by, and we'll just route. And then started doing that on the East Coast as well. And by that point, I think there was a buzz going, and the big cities got something going first, and
Yeah.
then eventually college towns. And
Well, I think
you
it's
know.
the persistence of going back every 3-4 months as well.
Yeah, that's totally
not just
what it
hitting
was.
the market and
No.
hoping that we'll hit it again next year. It's like,
Right.
no, we need to be back in the fall.
Yeah, before they forget you, we used to always say, yeah, exactly right.
And those are definitely early days before management when you guys are doing all your own promoting. And we heard some funny stories about Rob, aside from trying to make his own graphics and art for flyers, but, calling clubs, calling gigs.
Yeah, he was great at all that. That's the thing, even from like the Galactic Prophylactic days, Robert was always, he was always kind of the business manager de facto, and he did a great job. And he had great aesthetic visual skills. Like those flyers were memorable. The Galactic, I think people liked, even just the flyer was appealing. I remember just before I ever even started playing with him, being like, flyers are great. It's always like a different.
The band's gonna be cool.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. They got a great logo. It's gonna work out. Let me get in on this thing.
That Winn-Dixie Diva, man. I bet she's hot. Yeah.
It's a great song. And so that was the thing. I was kind of a fan because I was just into going out to live music in general, and they were just fun to see. But they had this real groove going.
Yeah.
And it was just like this would be so much fun to, it's like to be a part of it. And they don't have an organ player, so they should get me.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and I know that I think it was you guys playing as maybe I don't know if you were part of this outfit. I think it was the Ivanhoes, which was basically like a Meters cover band just to fill time before you could hit the road as Galactic.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and you guys all had your own, obviously you love Art Neville, and Rob loves George Porter and Zigaboo, and Leo Nosatelli. Like, you guys all had your own little personal hero in that band, like your model band.
Well, the thing, too, is, like, the Meters was a band I wasn't really aware of until I came to New Orleans. And, like, when you discovered, but they were playing around town.
Yeah.
It was actually still like Leo. This is before Leo had left town.
Zig had already moved to California.
Zig was gone, but it was Russell Baptiste on drums, and like Russell was just amazing.
Yeah, he's a killer.
With them. Yeah. And they used to play tips, and so we'd all been wowed by them. They just seemed like masterful musicians, and then that music, you started getting into the old records because and everything wasn't available then. Even this is before even everything was re-released on CD, let alone you could just type a song into your device and have it. So
you can just say phone, find Meters.
Yeah, exactly. So so we started, like you would be like, oh, I got a copy of Look Bye Bye, or oh no, he's got that on vinyl or whatever, and we just started going through all the old instrumental stuff. And then because there we were, bass, guitar, drums, keys, it was just a natural thing to want to emulate it and just learn all those tunes because it was just orchestrated for what we had going on. And that was kind of the thing, like all the great rhythm sections, funky rhythm sections, like that interplay was kind of the thing that seemed so cool about it. It's like you're building this larger rhythm out of all these little interlocking parts. And that's what gives it this sophisticated feel. It's like just so, when it's right, when the parts really lock together in the right way, is just kind of it's just so gratifying.
For sure. Well, once you guys had started getting a little success on your own, what was it how did you first attain management? I know you guys were with Superfly pretty early on in their careers before Bonnaroo and everything else.
Yeah.
Like, when was it that kind of made you guys take that step into, this is a lot, we need to get this off our plate and just concentrate on music and have someone else manage?
That kind of happened again sort of slowly, organically too, but it was really a booking agent really first, Mike Luba, who ended up doing String Cheese and all, and he came out to see us somewhere on the East Coast. Well, they were in Athens, his original company was in Athens, Georgia, and he came out somewhere and just. I just remember hanging out with him after the gig, and he was kind of like, I don't know if you guys know it, but this thing is like really happening. Like this is, if you don't believe in it, you should. Like it was just one of these interesting moments where somebody, again, who was, had more going on than we did, and was like a legitimate booking agent.
Yeah.
Kind of said like, no, you guys can do this, and I'm sure you're ready for some help, and we can take the booking off your plate, and like, and Robert was like, yeah, music to my ears.
Thank God, yeah.
Because we were, that's the thing, it was crazy in those days, like you pull over, it's it's the era of payphones, and
yeah. Do you guys have a messaging service or anything like that?
What's that?
A messaging service?
No, we really
you call
didn't.
a number to check your messages.
Yeah, I think but you call your like machine at home.
Yeah.
You could do that, right? And just calling clubs, from the payphones, and even for like load-ins, like we're gonna be late and we're in blah blah blah. And
well, let me ask you this: did this ever come up? Because it's not like you can just go online and make sure that the show is on sale. Like, did you ever show up to a place that you thought you had a gig and there was no gig to be had? Like now we can okay, I went on this club's website and our show is listed and it's selling or whatever else. Like you couldn't look online. You'd have to get in that market and find a local rag to see if your band was even listed.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like the weeklies and stuff was the thing, or was this promoted at all? And,
exactly. Yeah, so it just rip you off.
Yeah, the weekly papers were a big deal, and I don't remember ever showing up to a gig that we didn't have.
Okay.
But I do remember some funny weekly, like the funniest. This was actually, this was in the internet age, but it was one of those old weekly papers in Portland. Some music writer who was like not feeling the jam band scene at all, or us, had written this really like, yeah, if you're into jam bands and like guitar solos that go on all night or whatever, like check out Galactic. And then there was a link that was supposed to be, a link to Galactic, check out Galactic. But when you clicked on the link, it would actually went to like just some raw footage of like a drum circle in the park or whatever, just like guys banging on djembes and stuff. It was like the best diss that anyone ever did on us. And it was so out there that it was just kind of like, you had to kind of respect it.
Yes, but he's ultimately had to eat his own words, I'm sure.
Well, we'd like to think.
Being another jam band that appeared in Oregon.
We'd like to think, but
I've been to Oregon. There's definitely plenty of crunchy guys sitting in a circle right now banging on drums.
Indeed, there are.
With not nearly as much success as Galactic. So when you look at 25 years and think, oh man, it's very difficult. Not many bands get to see 25 years together. And obviously things are different in today's world because of pandemic and everything. But this question probably answers itself. Do you owe the longevity and success of the band to collaborating with so many different people? I mean, I know Houseman hasn't recorded with you since Ruckus in the early 2000s. And since then, you've had a bevy of different singers, dozens and dozens of different people collaborate with you on the albums. Do you think that kind of owes to the longevity of being able to continue doing this without wearing you guys out?
Yeah, I think so, especially in terms of just making new music and like always try to ask ourselves where do we go from here? What can what can we do with this next? It's still kind of in our tradition of groove-based music,
yes,
and like can still like move a room, a partying room, but there's no doubt that just working with different songwriters and different singers, especially on the vocal song side of it, which has grown a lot since the early days.
Yeah.
Just the percentage of vocal tunes to instrumentals has changed quite a bit from, like 70% instrumental, 30% vocal to kind of the inverse of that today. So, yeah, there's no doubt about that. for sure, especially in terms of making records, you know.
Well, there were conversations early on when Houseman first had to leave for health difficulties. That was anyone from the band ever really considering stepping up and trying to be a lead singer at all? Was that ever in the realm?
Definitely not.
Because you guys are all self-admitted terrible singers.
Well, I mean, it's not that we couldn't sing like background vocals or something, but no one was ready. No one, not especially in the context of the music we play and the music we had made and made with Theral. Like none of us, you know, we would have been fooling ourselves to think we could.
Who's the best singer in the band?
That's a great question. I mean, we only really do some little background vocals and stuff, so I don't think we've fully vetted it yet.
No? Who do you think is the worst singer? This is your opinion. You don't have to be agreed upon. We're not taking a vote. I'll tell you your opinion. Who's the best? Who's the worst?
Well, the funny thing is, I don't even have a gauge on. Let's see. Jeff doesn't have a vocal mic.
Well, that's
usually.
what I was going to ask because he used to have one up there, and I
Who
think
does?
he was
Me
lip-syncing.
and Stanton.
You and
And
Rob
Robert.
for sure. Yeah.
I mean,
Ben has one, but he only does the "We Love Him Tonight." You know.
I mean, if you sing me a pitch, I can sing it back to you. So it's like I can, little background parts and stuff. It's
I
not.
was gonna say, when Jeff had a mic, he was not singing; he was pretending to sing. So I try to call him out for before.
Maybe it's for the best. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's why they just struck it entirely. It's like, don't bother putting it up there.
You never know when you'll find your voice. Maybe that'll transpire in our.
For sure.
In our.
Tell me a little bit about writing lyrics without a singer. I know there are a lot of the songs like on from the Corner of the Block, where you were collaborating with a lot of hip hop artists for the first time, and a lot of that was you send them beats or send them track, and they would send you back vocals, and it was kind of the first, telecommunications album type of thing that you guys had probably worked on as far as not physically in studio with someone.
Yeah, it was
sending you lyrics.
Right, that's true. And that album was really like the Katrina and post-Katrina record.
Yeah.
So it lended itself to that, and the technology was kind of there too. And we're working with a lot of non-New Orleans artists. Which is what was really different about that record. And that was because we kind of did develop a concept, for lack of a better word, there was a lot of this alternative hip-hop stuff going on.
Yeah.
And we had cross paths with some of those guys, Lyrics Born and Charlie Tuna. And so it just kind of gave us this idea of, like, why don't we do a record that's just kind of featuring, the best of this side of hip hop.
For sure. Yeah.
And what's going on. And we, being the kind of band we were, just like writing sort of live grooves to go behind hip hop as opposed to constructed by a producer, break beats and things like that. Just was an appeal. And there was one record, this band, the Brand New Heavies, that was around in the 90s, early 90s. There was sort of a new funk, soul, R&B sound, talking about that era of the funky bands that were out there, like Grey Boy All-Stars and stuff. They had made one record like that. It was like MCs and their but still like a live funk band making tracks for them rather than constructed by a DJ producer. And so that was kind of the concept with that one.
Right.
Yeah.
A lot of the songs, like you said, a lot of them have lyrics and someone singing on them. Are you guys writing a lot of that together? Is there any one person who is like, oh no, this so-and-so really has, a good lyrical sense? Or do you allow that for whoever is sitting in on the album?
No, we've definitely gone back to certain people who are just are good writers and people we've worked with successfully before. So it's not necessarily the person who's singing the song wrote the lyrics or, Boyfriend has done. She did a track for us, but she's also like written lyrics or done lyric work on other songs. We've done obviously a couple things with David Shaw.
Yeah.
And just I
mean, you've had at least 40 different people.
Yeah, I know.
do vocals on your albums.
You're right.
And I think I might be conservative with 40. You don't have to name them all. It'd be awfully difficult too. Who's out there that you guys have talked about collaborating with that you're still waiting for? Maybe just getting up the nerve to ask them, or waiting for them to finally say yes. Is there anyone out there like that?
That's a really good question, because at this point we've kind of, those people like getting up the nerve to have kind of, so many of them have actually worked out, especially in the New Orleans scene. Like Yakime was a record of like, you know, Irma Thomas and Alan Toussaint and the people that we would have, you know, been very reluctant to approach early on in our careers. And finally at that point, you know, you're in a place where people like that will take your call and maybe have heard of you and, you know, be interested in doing something.
They've all heard of you, man. They've all heard.
So those were all very special. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of like who do you just kind of discover that's just, you know, you weren't even aware was there. And there have been a few like that, like Princess Shaw.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was going to, you know, bring up that specific instance of people who I hadn't heard of, and then I heard them on one of your tracks, and it was, who the hell is this?
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah. And I had the same reaction because I hadn't seen, she kind of had a YouTube thing going on that film that had been made that she was in, and I hadn't seen it, but Ben was like, man, you got to hear this. You got to hear this chick, and she's in New Orleans, and it's like she's not playing around in the club. She doesn't have a record, and you know, things like that are really kind of the fun surprises now that you know, you're just like, wow, that's, you know.
Well, hopefully it never stops.
You never know
you,
what's
you know?
out. Yeah, exactly. You never know really what's out there, and there's so much talent, and just in this city, and you know, now it's like different generation of talent, and you know, you're not out even when we could be checking out all the music in all the clubs, but things kind of have a way of just sort of naturally finding their way to you, you know, when you're ready to do something with it. So
let me ask you about when you guys take songs that you've been playing for quite some time and find a new way to present it on stage, like I guess one that stands out that's been a part of your catalog for about 10 years, I guess, when you play Heart of Steel, which is something that used to come right out the gate real heavy, and now you guys have a very different approach to a song like that. Is that something out of, we just kind of like the way this sounds, or how do you go about deciding as a band that we want to try something completely different with a song that we've been playing near nightly, you know?
Yeah. Well, that one, I guess we kind of rearranged it with just that different kind of stripped down synth bass feel up front. And you know what? That was really inspired by a sort of mashup remix record that Quickie Mart made. And he had done something like that. And
he did that with a bunch of your songs. It wasn't even just that way. He did, I think it was like an hour or two, if I'm not mistaken. I remember putting it on.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Sorry,
it was
go
great.
ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
It was great. It was brilliant. It had brilliant segues.
I love you, Martin, by the way.
Yeah, no, he's fantastic.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, like the art of the DJ is recontextualization like that. It makes you hear something differently.
You gave
even
him your
though it's music
multi-tracks, is that right?
It's music you're familiar with, but you hear it differently because of the way it's contextualized. And he did that brilliantly with that whole remix. And so that was just one of those things. It's like, that's really cool. Maybe we should try and do something like that and rearrange this tune. Because that is a thing, too. If you can, especially songs that you know you're going to play repeatedly, they really are kind of, you know, staples of your set and songs people kind of expect to hear. If you can find a new way of kind of dealing with it, but still also delivering what they know from the tune, you know, you can kind of
fan, I remember
have the best
hearing
of both
it,
worlds.
And it's like, this sounds like Heart of Steel. You know,
Yeah.
Like, is this Heart of Steel? That's not how they play that song. And obviously, after 30 seconds, like, oh, this is definitely Heart of Steel. Do you remember the first time playing at Tipitina's?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember that because I know the band story
Was that
was
the first
really
time
Galactic
for you,
Prophylactic. Yes, but I was not in the band.
Oh.
They opened for Cowboy Mouth.
They opened for Cowboy
Yeah,
Mouth.
I've heard those guys.
Without a keyboard,
tell the
without
story.
keys or
No, they
anything?
didn't have keys then. And yet, I think I was here because, which is strange because it was kind of like Robert had explained to you. It was Tulane Homecoming or something, but I think I just was. I knew those guys then. Maybe Rob, my roommate, was still in the band, so it was just like, yeah, you can get you on the guest list or whatever.
For sure.
So,
well, not for nothing, Cowboy Mouth was at the top of the world at the time.
That's true, they were.
So
and
all
I
the
remember,
girls were going to be here anyways.
Yeah, I mean, the packed crowd made an impression on me, and those guys played. I was in the audience, I'm pretty sure, because I remember Chris Lane making it. Seems like the fried chicken backstage has always kind of been a thing. Like, I remember Chris was great at working whatever elements were going on into, like, it was almost like a stand-up act.
Yeah.
From the singer.
I don't know him, but I'm told he's hilarious.
Well, his in-between like between song banter was really where he excelled.
If only he could keep
Even
up with
more
singing.
so than maybe as a singer, although he made his thing work for him because he was such an entertaining person, but I don't know. I just remember, thinking about the fried chicken. I think he threw out a few pieces of Popeyes out into the audience.
That's wasteful.
At some point. Yeah, it was, but somehow that, the strangest things sort of stay with you.
All right. Well, what about you though? First time was it with Galactic? I assume first time.
It was,
playing?
but I'm sure we got an opening slot with somebody. I don't know if it was the first, but one that really sticks out to me was we opened for War.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I remember that
not
because
too shabby.
Yeah, because we were doing the Ivanhoe's, the just straight up meters covers, just the instrumental stuff, just the four of us over at what Benny's had become. It was like Benny's Mark II, but it was what was it called then? It wasn't Benny's anymore, but it was Benny's.
Same corner.
Yeah, it was the same place, but it was. I'm drawing. I can't remember now, but so we were kind of doing the Ivanhoe's over there, and a lot of the tip staff, some of the bartenders and stuff used to come hang after, as you would, and I remember somebody said, like, you guys should open for War. It should be you guys, and somehow it came to pass.
We should.
Yeah, we should. We should totally be doing that.
You're right. Yeah.
But somehow it came to pass, and we did get that gig. And that was probably my first show at Tipitina's.
That's not too shabby at all.
No, it was really cool.
Yeah.
And the funny thing about it was, like, War Again's one of those, bands, legendary bands. You love those records, and they're all kind of the tones we were using then, like, Hammond organ and the Wurlitzer and stuff like that. But they were, again, like, those guys had kind of gone through the 80s, and they were still sort of using the 80s more digital stuff.
More electronic, yeah.
And we came in like carrying a vintage Leslie and stuff like that, and they're like, "Wow, it's been a while since I've seen one of those or whatever." Here's kind of like, "Really? Because this is like your records.
Like,
this is
we
what
play this because of people like you."
Exactly right. Yeah, and that was kind of the scenario there in that kind of early and mid '90s was. It was just starting to come back, those kind of classic sounds and things, and that was kind of part of the thing that was a little bit different about us. There was just a handful of bands in different parts of the country that were kind of going, more for those sorts of just classic
next
vintage
generation of
tones
funk,
of 60s and 70s kind of tones,
Yeah.
and right, exactly.
That's wild. War. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
yeah.
hilarious. Let's zoom forward to the past couple of years. 2018, Galactic buys Tipitina's. I've known you guys for a lot of years, and everyone credits Alex, your manager, Alex Brawl, and obviously should, because it seemed like a pipe dream of something that you guys never would have really imagined if he hadn't lit that fire or, kicked off that spark of doesn't hurt to try.
Right. Yeah.
Did you really think that it was going to be feasible? And obviously, I'm sure after a few months, it's going to happen. Oh, it's not going to happen. Oh, it's going to happen. It's not going to happen. Like
Right.
the
Yeah.
roller coaster of the probably entire however many months leading up to it.
It was that for sure, and it was. But it was one of those things like nothing ventured, nothing gained, and the one thing we Yeah, I mean, we do know something about persistence.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, and it ain't over till it's over, you know? And
Absolutely right about that.
and it was also just this, it seemed like a unique opportunity, even though it had a number of challenges to be overcome.
Still does. Yeah.
Yes, and it still does.
Yeah, I know.
Yes, maybe the ultimate challenge
Truly.
for this business on both sides of it. But it also just seemed like if we're ever going to do anything else together and as a band and as a group and as, you know, 5 guys who've managed to find a way to work together and keep it going all these years, you know, you kind of realize in retrospect, like, we do have some sort of process. We do have ways of figuring out what to do collectively. It's strange because you don't think about it while you're doing it, but at some point you realize, like, you know, we make pretty decent partners, you know, and we all kind of have different things to contribute and different levels of input on different things, but we do kind of have a, you know, obviously a working relationship that has stood some test of time.
Yeah, I was going to say, 20,
right?
I hear a lot of musicians make the joke about this, especially ones that have been together for a long time. And you guys all have families, wives, you know, all the stuff. But you also have 4 wives that you've been married to way longer than your actual wife, you know?
Yeah,
Like
that's
kind
true.
of an inside joke, I guess.
It is a strange sort of...
You're married to each other before you're married to your own actual wife. Yeah.
Right. Bizarre, all-male, platonic,
Yeah. Hetero
5-way
life
marriage.
mates.
Not that it matters.
Yeah, not that it matters. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Well, while we're talking about things Tipitinas, I would be, you know, remiss if I didn't bring up the Tippett Foundation. And obviously, you know, things like we mentioned are totally chaotic and weird in the world, not just New Orleans. But tell the people what the Tippett Foundation is and some of the goals that we can look for in the future when things normalize somewhat and we can start doing real work for it, I guess.
Yeah, well, we've managed to actually fulfill some aspects of our mission statement already. I mean, I think the things that we have, it's great because TIPS has this, you know, has this love and this audience and this you know, community that's already out there that we just, you know, knows us and we know them just as performers and having played here so much over the years and as Galactic. But once we became the owners, we got to know this community in a whole different sort of respect. And so even out of the gate, you know, we've been able to do some cool things just that seem like the right things at the right time. You know, we've given to the Musicians Clinic early on in this year when...
Well, the funny thing,
it seemed
Tippett Foundation is relatively new.
It is. It's brand new.
It didn't have an opportunity to have any kind of real, you know, capital or drive or whatever else. It was new enough that hadn't really even got to do any events to raise money to, you know,
that's
pass
true.
It along.
Yeah,
to
that's
do what
true.
it was
And
supposed
yet
to
we did raise some just because of the love of Tipitinas and the traditions around it and what people know it represents, and people knowing us and knowing that we want to be contributors and a positive influence on the larger musical cultural community. And so it was exciting just to get it going in that respect. And we've done it in the most simple way where we're not trying to remake ourselves overnight into philanthropists. We, you know, just by doing a charitable account administered by Ganoff that
it's a Greater New Orleans Foundation.
Greater New Orleans Foundation, so that it's a very simple structure and very simple and transparent. And but it feels good once you do anything in that space. You sort of realize, like, this is another real opportunity with becoming the stewards of this place and this legacy. And so we look forward to doing a lot more.
I mean,
a lot
hopefully.
more of everything.
Yeah.
Once we're able to.
TippetFoundation.org. Nick, put that on the screen for people to see and click on and learn about, and hopefully we can start doing events for Tippett Foundation real soon. Or if you feel like donating people and want to help with the mission, check it out. Something else interesting about having musicians own a music venue, which I love and which is wonderful. And I worked here for a long time before you guys took the reins. But something many people probably don't realize about music clubs is that clubs tend to have a lot of gear. Like you have, like we have a drum kit, we have a B3, we have amps, we have this, we have that. There's a lot of things that clubs just have to retain because you can't expect every touring musician to have every single thing. Like sometimes it's just too bulky, and it's easier to know, hey, we have one of those. We have a working Leslie. We have a this, I think it's funny that now that we have musicians, we have, luckily there's a key, someone who plays keys. So if something's wrong with the organ, call Rich. It's your problem. You got to take care of it.
Yeah,
we need a new bass amp. Rob, you got to take care of this. We need a new drum kit. Stanton. It's one of those funny things. And I'm only bringing that up because we haven't had a house piano at Tippetina's in a long, long time. And storage is going to be tricky. We can figure it out. I know we can find a place to stash one.
Yeah.
But who do we get to give us a free piano? So
that's a great question. I mean, there are a lot of pianos out there, but it's definitely past due for Tippetina's to have a...
And I'm not making this your problem. I mean, having a good B3 like we have is already above and beyond what most venues have to offer.
Very true, very true. And the hard part about a piano is both storage and then on-off stage, and then of course it has to be maintained and tuned.
It'd have to be some sort of small upright situation.
Yeah, we could definitely have that going on, right.
Who's on your Mount Rushmore of piano players? Given that it's not taken away from indigenous peoples by the government and put on one of their holy spaces, but metaphorical Mount Rushmore of piano players. It could be just one. Like, that's fair. I would venture to say Professor Longhair, maybe.
It was. Well, sure.
How about organ players? Not even just piano players. Are there anyone that is organ specific? Is there anyone that that specializes? Like Art Neville is a good instance. Like someone who basically, people have been trying to emulate what he's been doing for the past, or what he did for 70 years. Or whatever.
Yeah. Well, Art really. He had a really unique approach to the organ in the rhythm section context as a rhythm section player, and kind of almost the way the James Brown rhythm sections use two guitars but playing different sort of interlocking parts. Art found these great little parts to weave in there between Leo and George that is just... It's all his own. You can hear the New Orleans aspect in there, like what he learned from all the older guys and Toots and the piano players and stuff. Yeah. But he used it on the organ in this rhythm section context that is truly unique. It is like it's and it's just so tasteful without overplaying ever. But it's just perfectly like rhythmically placed. Well, and that's the thing about funk music when it's right. It's not that you're playing all these wild solos that go in all this, over all this vast terrain and stuff. It's just the way those parts come together to create something that's larger than some of the parts.
Well, I can't help but think that I could not describe your own playing better than that myself. And, to feed you an easy compliment. But
I appreciate it.
Your songs,
I'll take it.
When again, leading up to this, I spent a lot of hours just with Galactic music on in the background, just kind of, soaking in your vibes, listening to the Galactic songs that I hadn't listened to in quite a while. And even some of the stuff that I haven't heard you guys play in 15 years, things like that. There's a niche of Galactic songs that are literally being held on by a thread by you, by the keyboard, by the organ, just the things. And there's plenty of even just some of those silly sound effect type things that you do, like little squeaky type of things, stuff that it wouldn't be a cool song without it. Like I don't know
it's nice to
specifically
hear.
how to put that into words. I'm not a music writer and I'm not a poet, so I can't say it pretty like. But
I'm very proud of the little squeaky sounds.
yeah,
you know?
totally. I mean, and I've said it before. One of my favorite Galactic songs is Tiger Roll, and just some of the sounds that you make on that. That's what makes the song for me, man. And I love. When I became a Galactic fan was when you guys were playing a lot more of that spacey stuff.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah,
So,
yeah. I like that stuff too, and I like it. It's a textural thing,
Yeah.
and I mean, the groove always has to be there, and then it's about texture and little sonic tidbits, and
you guys are still putting on powerful, funky, spacey, wild show, but you have elements of pop in there
Right.
that
That's
didn't
definitely
exist
true.
15 years ago.
that's
you know?
true, and that's the songwriting part of it, and there are definitely more. There's more of that, more vocal tunes, and to me, that stuff, like a lot of the creativity, goes into the studio aspect of that, like making that tune, making the track, because those are tunes that when you perform them, they're a little more just like performed, usually pretty. I mean, at some point maybe you reinterpret them, like Heart of Steel, like you were talking about, but those are a little more like you play them down because they're the tune, and you know, verses and choruses, and maybe a little bridge or solo. So to me, the art of that music really is when you're making the track in the studio, because you're trying to find the right part, the right sound, make it work for the song. But the other stuff that you're talking about, the instrumental stuff and some of the more spacey stuff over the groove, that's the stuff where live there's a little more breathing room in it, and you have more room to play around with it, and it's kind of That's I mean, we try to keep all these elements within Galactic and represent them all in a Galactic show, but there was definitely an era where there was a lot of that, or more of that being made. And,
Well, yeah, young me back then was eating a lot of psychedelics at your shows.
Yeah.
So
And
it
it's
was
fun to like
very
take,
impactful.
it's fun to take especially the old keyboards, and then try to get some new sounds, or you know, sort of push them in different directions beyond just the basic sound that everybody knows from the, you know, the electric pianos and the organ and stuff like that.
There's almost no limit to what you can do with, you know, not like some kind of super technology or anything like that, but there's no one way that you've made Galactic sound. And I think a big part of why your sound is so broad is because of you specifically. And again, just giving you a really heavy compliment.
Well, I appreciate it. Yeah,
I feel like you might be the most underrated guy in the band because you sit in the corner.
Well, that's the nature of the job.
You're
It's a
behind
desk
all
job.
the equipment,
Ultimately,
you know?
Tank. Yeah, you know, it's like you're behind the big wooden furniture, especially with
you
the
got
B3.
the heaviest instruments, so no one wants to think about that guy in the corner.
It's a very secure feeling place, though. I like it back there. You know?
Well, especially I know that you like it back there because I remember you used to be up here, but you got tired of getting spilled on by people from upstairs.
Yeah, that's
I remember
definitely
one
true.
time we were like, "We got an umbrella for you." Like, dude, I'm not putting an umbrella. on this
It doesn't
stage.
really save all the keyboards with
No.
the beer
No.
going down in, you know,
No.
in between
no,
the keys.
you're much
and-
safer back there, for sure.
Agreed.
Since, like I said, you're in the back and you're sometimes one of the least recognized member because, you know, again, I 95% of the times I've seen you, it's been here. So that's also skewed from my perspective of Galactic.
Yeah, you got the
But
back
you're
corner, you
hidden
got the
behind
posts.
column. Yeah.
You got all the barricade
Yeah.
of keyboards around you.
You're tucked away. You don't do a
keyboard
whole lot of interviews necessarily. Like, you're never one of the first guys to volunteer to do a Galactic interview. So you're the mysterious one almost, you know? You are the mysterious one. So what are some hobbies, recreations, things that people might not know about you that we're unveiling to the world here?
Well,
Do you have hobbies outside of playing music?
the truth is that outside of playing music, I really am an outdoor kind of person. Like, music is probably the only, and this is why history wasn't going to really lead anywhere beyond college, is that other than music, I'm totally attracted to just being outside, outdoor activities. One of the things I really missed about even just going out west again, the thing I look forward to every year is mountain time. And,
Okay.
yeah, because that kind of just got under my skin when I was young, and then I have a sailboat. I love to sail on Lake Pontchartrain, just be out on the water, and
Nice.
because I had a little. People don't believe it, but growing up in Omaha, Nebraska, I kind of got hooked on sailing because we lived close to
a pool.
Well, yeah, right. Well, people are like, oh, you have water? Not a lot of water, but we had.
It's River City.
Yeah, we had. Well, we had a lot of wind at least, and there was a. And no, actually, there was a lake not very far from where I grew up, and there was, and even in Omaha, just like with music, there was a little sailing scene going on there, especially in those like 70s and 80s after the gas prices and oil embargo. People took interest in sailing and windsurfing, even in Nebraska.
Wow.
And I had a little fast, sporty dinghy thing called a laser that sailors all know what they are, and so I used to go blast around on that lake on that little thing. So,
all right.
So really just anything outdoors. But the mountain thing I got from my parents. They were both skiers and love the mountains. And so.
All right. Well, we'll start ramping it down. You've been super generous with your time. Something I asked the other two guys that I've interviewed already. And this is a long question that is ultimately a compliment. Are there any bands that you know of that have collaborated with as many artists as you have, both live and in studio, played as many major music venues as you, headlined as many iconic clubs and venues and sold them out, built their own studio, produced their own albums, let alone other people's albums, and ended up owning their favorite hometown music venue? Can you name the other band?
Yeah, I'll start rattling them off, right? Yeah, no, that's, when you put it like that.
The answer is nobody. I don't know of anyone else that has done what you guys have been able to accomplish.
That's good. So. This has been a real morale building experience, Tank.
Yeah,
I really appreciate
Just trying to keep my job, man.
I might start doing interviews more often if they're all like this.
Yeah,
I
totally.
feel great
Every
about
interview
myself.
should be just like this.
And my life's accomplishments.
For sure. Well, I did some homework. And, like I said, you're the mysterious one. Like, there's, just from working with you guys, and whenever people ask the club, like, hey, we want Galactic to do this, it's like, cool, did you ask Galactic? Because I don't run Galactic, I run Tipitina's.
Right. Right.
So it's funny.
Yeah.
So every
I'm
once
sure.
in a while, it's like, hey, they need someone to do an interview. And I know a lot of times, it's, not everyone wants to volunteer to wake up early to do an interview. So
very true. I must say, my favorite thing to do in a nightclub or a bar is to play.
Yeah.
That's how all this started. That's
sure.
why we're here.
Well, we're gonna close it out, and something that I've been doing, I think, since the Robert and Stan interviews is, we talked about how the guys lived right by Guys, and how there was like the Galactic apartment across the street from Guys, and Marvin from there would bring food over there, and Stanton has the po' boy, the bomb, which is the famous Stanton signature po' boy at Guys Po' Boys. Is there a Rich? Do you have a favorite po' boy? Do you have a spot that you want to give a shout out to? And if you were to create the Vogel, as it were, what would be on it?
That I cannot answer, because I am not the po' boy aficionado. But of course,
I'm not expecting you to create a great
I can't
concoction of food.
That's
Even if
way
it's
too much pressure.
Yeah, that's a lot of pressure. But Stanton seemingly can just come up with po' boys like nothing. It's
I don't know. It's like it's in the blood, I guess. Yeah, he's the one who grew up here, and his first word was French fries, I believe. I'm not making that up. I'm sure he's told that story.
I haven't heard that.
At least once. And so
what's your favorite type of po' boy then?
Well, the funny thing is, as of late, it's like the last one that I had that I remember was a banh mi, Vietnamese po' boy.
Oh yeah, no, those are
Dong
awesome
Phuong.
too, man. Yeah.
And at Dong Phuong they have a Chinese roast pork one that's different, obviously, than from the
regular banh mi.
Yeah, the regular roast pork, Vietnamese roast pork. And I had that just last week.
Dude, Asian po' boys are awesome too.
Oh, they are.
Yeah.
I love that. It's kind of like it's the best of
all right. Well, what if we mix pork banh
mi
mi with the Chinese style as well? Make that a single po' boy, huh?
I don't feel that I need to invent a sandwich. I think that list of accomplishments that we had just gone through is like,
Well, it was just something we've been
like
having
I said,
everyone
I've
play
never
along.
felt better about
That's okay, but you don't have to leave
25
empty-handed either way, because for participating, you do get this Certificate suitable for framing for participating. If you want to go ahead and read that.
Good. Everybody gets a trophy.
Yeah, for sure.
I love it.
Here, I'm giving you a folder so you don't lose it.
Fantastic.
Go ahead and read that aloud, just because I like having people
Certificate suitable for framing for participation in the All Right broadcast. We hereby certify that you, Rich Vogel, are officially awesome for being interviewed on this day, October 5th, 2020, for absolutely no monetary compensation whatsoever. Congratulations, and you're welcome.
You are welcome.
With the seal...
Do you like the seal? Isn't that great?
Comes stamped with the seal of seriousness.
Yes.
And I think
you're the first person to point that out.
If we've demonstrated anything here tonight, it's been seriousness.
It's seriousness. I mean, you're only 2 beers in. I'm
and
a couple of inches of scotch in.
And, I'm ready for a nap.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you've been super generous with your time. Like I said, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, Rich Vogel, thank you so much to Tipitinas. I hope you enjoyed this on Tipitinas.tv. The All Right broadcast company is happy to provide you with all this fine entertainment here. Like, subscribe, comment. Thank you so much, like I said, to Tipitinas. Thank you to Nugs.net for the usage of the equipment. The great Pete Jones on lights and sound. Tan the Man upstairs doing the cameras. And thank you to Nick Logan, who's ultimately going to have to edit this. Good luck, man. I know there's a couple choppy places for sure. But overall, thank you so much, and thank you to Rich. Ladies and gentlemen, Rich Vogel.
Thank you. Thank you.
You are welcome. Do you like that? That's something we started giving out to people. I think it's great.
That's fantastic. And I should have said, I don't know who used to say this. Having fun is serious business.
I don't know. Who did say